let's circle back, guys. I had spoke to you a moment ago as it pertained to a show called Unwatchable with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Now, here's the story, all right? And I wrote a book a number of years ago, and I shared with you a chapter that just said, if you want to know everything that you need to know about politics, how politics work within the United States, all you need to do is study the history of professional wrestling. And once you get that, you will see the great works and the great angles. We have one going on today for Speaker of the... I mean, this whole thing is predetermined, right? This whole thing is Monday Night Raw. But they got people out there that are soaking it up. And it's just one of these interesting spots. And I want to bring that back because when I look at Skip and Shannon Sharpe, first off, that show is terrible. But if there's nothing else to watch and you know these guys and you kind of got a habit of going to it, they're going to be around for a little bit, but they're partners nonetheless. So Skip puts out a comment during Monday Night Football. And it was almost a perfect thought. And he put it out in the form of a tweet, which are generally statements. And I have maintained for you from the beginning of time, if you take the beer out of football, you just took the fans out of football. And I do believe that when Skip put this out, he had a lot of drunken audience that read it and interpreted it for what Twitter generally is, which is a statement as opposed to a thought. This is off the top of my head and I read it one time, but the story goes like this. Skip said, how do you not go on with the game? Particularly at this point in the season, and how meaningful the outcome of this is. However, as you look at this injured player, the outcome of this game sure does seem irrelevant. Now, that's not an exact quote, but boy, I'm close off the top of my head, and it was more of a thought, and he was right. What do you do if you were to stop the game? How do you stop it? And we have mechanisms in other sports. I mean, I would just share that with you from that of combat. We have a mechanism. Like if a fight is stopped due to a headbutt, and it wasn't supposed to, there's a way that you throw to the cards if X time has elapsed. They have something similar, at least in Little League baseball. I don't know if they have it in the pros, and I don't know that they have it in the NFL. So it really was a fair question, and it did seem pretty irrelevant, no matter what this means for the rest of the season or how we're going to fix this. Are we going to run it back? Or are we going to say, hey, what's the score right now? The game's done. What's the score right now? You know, that's a real thing, too. I'll just share with you, it's high school. In America, you got 50 different states. They have 50 different jurisdictions. But we have something out here in Oregon called the OSAA. I'll tell you what, if you've ever been there for it, you'll back me up. And if you haven't, let me share something with you. It doesn't matter what the game. If it's held indoor, doesn't matter if it's volleyball, doesn't matter if it's a wrestling match. Doesn't matter if it's basketball, doesn't matter if it's men or it's women. If you are playing a game and the building loses power. Have you ever thought about that at a gymnasium? Think of any gym you want. You probably don't have any windows in it. It's very rare to have windows within a gymnasium. So when the lights go out, you can't see your hand in front of your face. Whatever the score was, it doesn't matter if you're 1 second in or if there's 1 second left. Whatever the score was, when the lights went out, that contest is at a conclusion and you're done and you'll move on. That even happened one time in Oregon at the state tournament. The state tournament in the quarterfinals, the lights went out and they ended up coming back 8 minutes later. That's not much. Guys are still down there. They still got a bead of sweat going. Everybody's ready to go. Quarterfinals got decided because the lights went out and there's an obscure rule known about that. I'm just sharing that with you because Skip wasn't wrong to say this, not to mention it was a thought. Wasn't making a statement. Shannon Sharpe, his partner, won't show up for work the next day. He's disgusted. He's so bothered by it. Now, if this is nothing more than a pro wrestling angle, this is a good, solid angle, and Chael's a mark, and he's getting pulled in, right? But fair enough. I'm well aware that not only is that possible, it should be probable. There's no way that Sharpe should think he gets a day off and doesn't have to follow through on an obligation. Oh, and by the way, also gets the high-handed approach while his partner sits there and carries a show all by himself. But he might have. And then how long does that work, right? If it was true for Tuesday, why would you show up on Wednesday? Why did you show up anywhere in this week? Why don't you show up until you have the apology? It's weird. The whole thing's very weird. And I say it for you, not because I have an opinion. It was just surprising to me to watch how everybody else wanted to handle it. The question was, we've got to stop the game. What if he doesn't make it? Which would mean you have to look at the other side of what if he does? Are we going to stop other games in the future? Are we going to redo them? Are we going to refund them? Are we going to run this back? Are we going to affect the play? Whatever this game was for, are we going to redo that in the future if a guy goes down? What part about going down? And I had a friend tell me, well, his heart stopped. And I said, excuse me, Carl, how would you know that? I mean, maybe you were told that later and that did come. How would you know in that moment that his heart, and what difference would that make about his toe being out or him just being down? I mean, I'm just sharing for you, at what point do you stop it? As opposed to continuing. Vince McMahon had done this. You guys might remember it. This was a tough one. And I'm not passing a judgment for you. I'm doing a lot like Skip did, just in hindsight with some days removed. So let's go ahead and take a look at this situation. There seemed to just be a built-in belief that if you thought that the show must go on, you're a really bad guy. But if you thought it should be stopped, then you're a really good guy. It's like, well, okay, but where do you stop? What if I was there on a date? It was my first date with someone I took. Is the date now over? Does the relationship need to end? Like, what needs to stop? Just the game? Just that all these guys that are down here on the field, we just don't have them run opposite directions anymore? Okay, fair enough. Think it was 99. Could have been 98. 1998. There was a pay-per-view, WWE. And this is when the wars were going on. This is when WCW was hot. This was when Ted Turner bought every single piece of talent away. And Vince had to come in and reform his brand with two guys that you had never heard of named Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Very interesting time in wrestling. And you get to what you would look at as a co-main event. Second to the last match of the night is Owen Hart, and he was playing a character called the Blue Blazer. Blue Blazer came down from the rafters. Literally, they're playing these great, big, beautiful arenas, and Owen Hart's character repelled. He repelled straight into the ring. So Owen is up on the scaffold. He says, are we ready? He did this spot, 100 times at this point. And the guy tells him, yeah, you're ready. Well, Owen didn't double check. The guy was wrong. He had not hooked the rig. Owen jumped to his death on TV. And I was watching it, and it was tough. And the camera was not right on that. It was on the announcer. So you could barely see what had happened, and they never went back to the ring. And then the announcers are telling you and assuring you, hey, this is not a work. This is bad. And they don't really know how to speak, and you can almost see the tear in their eye. It was one of these really interesting things. So you then come out, and it's main event time. Stone Cold. And Vince didn't end the program. He went on with the main event, the last match, which was Stone Cold. And when they went to the ring, now they're showing the audience there's blood in the ring. That wasn't there before. So that's pretty tough stuff. I mean, that's a really, really tough thing. And Vince has been scrutinized for this ever since that was done. And Stone Cold, who was the main event, was also scrutinized about when Vince told you to go on, why did you? And it's just one of those situations. What do you do? How does that get handled? And I don't have the right answer for you. But I'll tell you what, you don't either. And if you want to be high-handed and be on the right side of the argument, then don't come down on somebody that's got a differing opinion. We don't know how to handle this, guys. That was 1998, the situation that I told you with Vince and Stone Cold and Owen Hart, rest his soul. 1998. So what have we had, guys? 24 years? Nobody has the answer still. They've been asked it many times. What would you do if you could go back? And nobody has the answer. And it hasn't been written down. There's no official policy. 24 years have gone by and they don't know how to handle it. So you get a guy that's asking a question in the moment during a circumstance we haven't seen, which is about to have an outcome of stopping, which we haven't seen. And what happens then? What are the ramifications? How does it work from a business standpoint of returning money to the ticket holders? I just think it's an interesting spot. I don't be a dick about it. I don't think they should get their money back. I don't know why. I don't know why you would. They started a game. Here you go. You saw some games. So what are we going to break it down? I show you 30%. I give you 70% of your team. But the whole thing's weird, man. Card subject to change. SHIT apostrophe happens. It's one of the top rules in show business. Much like the show must go on. But what's going to happen and what should we do from here? How about you be a little bit more open to hearing suggestions? And how about if you don't agree with your partner, you at least show up and discuss it with him? Seems like a reasonable start, at least to me.